We should be live, right? Carrie, can you hear me?
Yes, we're ready to set sail here.
All right.
I think we're live.
Yep, and
Awesome.
you're recording?
Yep.
Okay, let's do it. All right, well, welcome everybody to our weekly show here on Better Savannah's Facebook page. I'm Carrie Smith, joining these nice, beautiful, young, and little older gentlemen. Okay, but no, we're not going to talk about age today, guys. But anyway, we're joining founder of Better Savannah, John McMasters and Chuck Fagan. Tonight we have special guest, founder and contributing editor of the Savannahian and a new independent publication. Most of all, we know him as Jim for his longtime role as editor of Connect Savannah. So we're going to discuss journalism and politics, and I'm going to turn it back over to Chuck.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, you guys, for joining us tonight. I just want to do a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. I want to thank Jim for joining us tonight. This conversation is a long time in the making. There's a lot that's happened over the last 2 years in the local journalism and local politics. And we know that politics and journalism contribute to policy changes, which is what we are all about here at Better Savannah. So starting next week, we're going to be moving our shows to Thursdays from our Wednesday slot. We're bringing in more talent to make this content better for you so that more people are reached, so that this message gets out to people that the policy changes we're proponents of can help make for a better Savannah. So starting next Thursday, we're going to have a top 10 show. We're going to be looking at the top 10 blunders of the local city council in their first year in office. We're going to do it kind of David Letterman style. We'll have a top 10 countdown, and we'll discuss each of the major issues in those top 10. So next week, Thursday, 7 o'clock, right here on the Better Savannah Facebook page. John, I want to get ready and turn it over to you here. We've known this guy, Jim Morekis, on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, for a long time.
Far too long. Too long.
We've bantered back and forth. We've criticized each other. We've gone through all the cycles of a relationship.
I think we blocked each other. We blocked each other probably twice
a couple of times at least. When we got fed up with one another. But iron sharpens iron. That's right. Iron sharpens iron.
You're blocked.
So I hope that iron sharpens iron, and this conversation will be really, really fruitful for everybody that's watching live and everybody that will catch this on replay. So, John, why don't you go with the first question, or we'll let Jim introduce himself with something here. What do you think's the best? You want to just spitball for a minute?
Jim, please introduce yourself. And
welcome to the show.
Yeah. I'm Jim Morekis. I've been doing... been an alt weekly editor in Savannah for I'm going to call it 25 years. If people don't know what an alt weekly is, it's a John and I go way back in that industry. It's short for Alternative News Weekly, and it basically is the soul of a community. It's like Creative Loafing in Atlanta, Village Voice in New York, Charleston City Paper in Charleston, Bay Guardian in California. And so that's been my life as an independent journalist. I was trained in the formal way at the Grady School of Journalism at the University of Georgia, but very quickly sort of went into independent and alternative media. And it's been an interesting ride, and it's continuing to get even more and more interesting over the past few months. So so cool. And I guess the last time we saw each other in person, it's obviously been a while because of the pandemic and everything. McMasters, I guess you and I were probably, last time we saw each other in person was at a candidate forum with Deloach and Van Johnson, probably, I'm guessing.
Probably.
Yeah, which is a long time ago now. And
Seems like
Megan, I think you and I last saw each other at El Rocco. I'm pretty sure. I'm not quite positive.
Probably for Street Clothes or Eric Culberson maybe. I saw Culberson a couple months ago for the first time in a year. But yeah, one of those in the last year. It's been a while.
Yeah, so it's good to hang out with you guys again, even if it's still doing what we do here in the pandemic era. But yeah, man, it's good to be here finally. You guys are doing great work. Been following your work, and I really enjoy it. And I guess it was a good time for us to get together and talk.
Well, Jim, we can't thank you enough for coming on. You have talked about our history that goes back, I was thinking about it, over 25, 26, 27 years back to Creative Loafing, kind of the halcyon days of independent weeklies. And that was a lot of fun. I was on the sales side for the viewing audience, and Jim was heading up the editorial content side. And those two sides don't always mesh, as we know, but we got along and we put out a pretty good product, and it was a good time. But we feel very fortunate to have you on because, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be the first time the general public is going to have the chance to hear from you about what went down with the implosion at Connect. So
that's quite a tease. That's quite a teaser. Yeah, that's you're going to open with the big. You don't save the juicy stuff for a little later.
No, we're going to swing at the fastball right over the middle.
Oh boy, okay.
I love that.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
and by the way, we pushed this out in a little effort on Boost in Facebook, and we reached over 5,000 people, Jim, and several people sent in some questions. So in addition to questions, the public wants to know other stuff too. So
one thing journalists hate is being asked questions themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
We like to be the ones asking questions.
Well, it's going to be we're going to flip the script for an hour tonight.
Okay.
It's actors on actors tonight. It's your turn in the chair.
There you go.
All right, so let's get right down to the nitty gritty. What the hell happened at Connect, Jim?
Yeah, well, it's I like to preface this conversation or this piece just by saying that me and my colleagues at the Savannahian, Rachel Flora and Sean Kelly, were very focused on moving forward and getting this product going, and it's been extremely successful right off the bat. So I really strive not to come across like a disgruntled former employee. So I just want to. I am very much gruntled. I'm very happy with how things are going. So, but I do think the story of what went on at Connect and what led us to this juncture of forming our own media outlet, I think it's instructive, and I think it is illustrative, and I think there are some lessons and some things that local people can really get out of it. So basically, first what happened is, of course, the pandemic hit. And the pandemic did to Connect Savannah what it did to many other media outlets, which it annihilated their ad revenue, especially any publication like Connect that is so dependent for advertising on bars, restaurants,
sure,
performance, anything where you go out, right?
Sure.
Which you couldn't do during the pandemic, right? So we didn't have, car dealerships or tire stores as advertisers. We had places that were really pandemic impacted. So obviously that murdered their revenue. That's not their fault. That's an endemic thing. In my opinion, sort of what they did is they kind of overreacted. They panicked at the loss of revenue. And in my opinion, sort of falsely blamed the content for that.
Nice.
Now, whether this is something they had cooked up for a while, I don't know, but that's sort of what happened. And along the way, we were told, and we found out that the company had employed a new consultant, an interesting new consultant, which we found quite remarkable. Local media people will know a gentleman named Michael Traynor. who was the longtime publisher of the Savannah Morning News. And I mean, a bête noir for Better Savannah. You guys have written a lot about him. And we found out one day that he was going to be our new consultant at Connect Savannah and chart our new path forward.
Oh, joy.
Yeah. So, so you can imagine, I mean, this is the guy, and, I make no personal attacks on anyone. It's just a factual basis that he was sort of our nemesis, our business arch rival for 20 years when he published the morning news. And then all of a sudden he was going to be essentially the general, dictating our strategy moving forward. And of course, nobody asked me what the strategy was.
Of course not.
Needless to say, nobody consulted with me at all. Yeah. So it was kind of a fait accompli. And we were told very directly that the new course forward would be to appeal more to people on the islands and at the landings and on the south side and in Pooler.
Well, that's code talk right there. Yeah.
So yeah, I leave it up to the listening audience to figure out what that really entails, what that really means.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that we would have no more opinions in the paper. There would be no more opinions. Opinion's bad. Yeah. So as you guys know, opinion is my middle name. So I was like, okay. I mean, that's just pointing right at me, right?
Right.
But I don't know, and not really. I mean, that could have been any of us really. Yeah. So in that, that's not my interpretation. That's what we were told was going to happen. So that was pretty interesting. And they, as part of this new game plan, they brought in a new publisher to run, day-to-day operations at the paper. Not a new owner. There's been a little bit of misinformation out there. The owner stayed the same. Charles H. Morris is still the owner of Connect, as he has been for decades. But they brought in a new publisher from Texas with no experience in the local market and no experience at any newspaper like Connect Savannah. And immediately right off the bat, myself and Rachel and Sean, the editorial department, we were told pretty much in no uncertain terms that we would no longer have editorial independence. So I, as editor-in-chief, would pretty much be told what was going or not going in the paper the next week. This is like not only, borderline unethical, it's also the main reason I had stayed with the paper as long as I did. I mean, 20 years is a long time to stay with one employer, is because, to give credit where it's due, they gave me virtual carte blanche in terms of editorial independence for 20 years prior. This was not a regime that was getting in my business or micromanaging at all. That's why I stayed as long as I did. I wouldn't have stayed otherwise. So they, put the kibosh on that. And then things got really weird. That wasn't even the weird part. The weird part is it turns out they wanted to get in tight with the local QAnon people, which was like, what are we doing here, guys? Wait, what? And so, we just got, I guess you'd have to call them microaggressions, just series of microaggressions that let us know we were not really welcome there anymore. And I guess the final straw of straws on the camel's back was one day somebody texted us and was like, have you seen these job ads Connect has online? And we're like, what job ads? And they apparently were advertising for all of our jobs online.
Oh, nice.
While we were still in the job.
Great.
So, it was like, Morekis, I think this is your job. They're advertising for it. I was like, yeah, that's my job. So we confronted them about it and we got a BS response. And we essentially, long story short, that was not a short story. I made a long story even longer, didn't I? But long story short, we all the editorial department, me and Rachel and Sean resigned in that week. We had enough. So we were, it's not true that we had the Savannahian planned. I think we had talked informally about starting our own gig when it became apparent that things were
Sure.
things sucked real bad, but we did not have like a game plan. I mean, when we resigned, that was sort of an idea to start the Savannahian, I think, came from the response of people when they found out that we all hauled ass and bailed on Connect. People were like, A, shocked, what the hell happened? What's going on over there? And B, they were like, so you guys are going to start your own paper, right? When are you going to start your own paper? We want to support it. Do it. And so we were like, oh, wow. Okay. So the level of public outpouring when word got out on social media that we left was just
unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
It really was. Yeah.
Of the community, because the community had come to trust Connect and Jim Morekis for consistency and insight and quality. And it's just like we never thought it was going to end, Jim. And next thing you know, when the news broke, damn.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, man. I mean, to us, it was a story that it was several months in the making. But I mean, I'm not one to discuss, inside baseball and that kind of stuff publicly.
You kept it on the down low. I mean, in my little universe, I didn't hear anything about it until the official announcement came out, and I was just stunned. Anyway, but my next question is, you've kind of covered it, but there's a lot of flux in media. The Savannah Morning News has got an identity crisis of major proportions right now.
Yeah.
How significant is this reformation of local media, and what's causing it, Jim?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is just consolidation is causing it. And I mean, in this case, it may have had a slightly positive effect because the Gannett takeover of the morning news, I think, at least on the surface, has sort of moderated their tone and product. Previously, as we know, the morning news was pretty blatantly right-wing in the style of the classic, mid to small sized American daily newspaper. I think that, and we've all railed against that, so Gannett came in, and there was a lot of heads rolled, frankly. I mean, Michael Traynor, one of them, he got restructured out and then just immediately came over to Connect. So that was a ripple effect from that. I think the tone and general inclusivity at the morning news and their editorial product has expanded, which I think most of us would have long overdue, and a welcome development. I still question how much of the basic outlook and the basic values have really changed there. And again, that's not a personal attack on anybody. I don't know. I think it may just be a makeover.
Yeah, I think they're metamorphizing, but they can't decide which way to go. Let me ask you another question. This is on in your wheelhouse, in your business, as a professional. When certain public figures become the target of the media, like Jolene Byrne and Keisha Gibson Carter, is local media crossing a line? And who's directing the over-reporting that seems to go along with that? What's your take on that?
Well, I'm actually more familiar with the Jolene Byrne thing because, I sort of early on, I guess, championed her for the same reasons that anyone else did. She was a reform candidate in an area sorely and dramatically in need of reform, our public school system. And it was an easy call for me because the morning news they went all in with this ridiculous character assassination. And it just became a caricature. It really was. And I mean, some of the things they wrote were just beggared the imagination. It was just like, what are you even doing with this stuff? It
was so blatant. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
It was so constant.
Yeah. And at that point, you almost have to conclude it's a personal beef, right? I mean, sure. Yes, there's a lot of misogyny. Clearly, a lot of misogyny was going on. But I'm not sure what transpired to make it so personal, so deeply and intensely personal. but
right.
it became that way. And it, of course, filtered out into the coverage where, you know, I mean, look, let's face it, for many years, they had an education reporter who, to put it charitably, you know, was kind of a company person, kind of just delivered like the status quo opinion of the school system of 208 Bull Street. I think that's almost objectively provable. Even if you think it's a good thing, I think few of us would disagree on that. But then it became like this anti-Jolene Byrne thing. And, you know, like most public officials in Savannah, she was really just one vote out of several. I mean, there are very few chairman positions in town that like run everything. I mean, even, you know, Van Johnson's one vote out of 9, you know.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jim. I've often said that they get pigeonholed as if they're responsible for the whole thing when they're really. Right. And the worst part about this is there are things you could criticize these women about. And
no
rather than stick to a policy debate about a position or a program, they resort to these attacks. I think there's a lot of people in Savannah who feel the same thing is happening to Keisha Gibson Carter right now at City Hall. And there's really this amazing arc from her firing at the Rape Crisis Center to the lawsuit to the narrowest victory in probably citywide history. I mean, you know, that election between Carol Bell and Keisha Gibson Carter was decided by less than 250 votes, you know? And I mean, you know, I think in a lot of ways, people like Jolene and Keisha represent this desperation for reform in Savannah. And because they are bold, they get beaten down by the local establishment / powers that be / you know, Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, right? It's all just a synonym for the same thing. It's just that powerful interests do not want to see that reform. So I just wanted to see your last thoughts on this subject of attacking specifically women in politics rising who may be reform minded.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, you need some time to play out before you really see what happens. So the scene that you set, yes, all true. And then, you know, it seemed like Keisha was like, just like getting in everybody's face and getting under everyone's skin. Okay. And then the pandemic comes on, and then Van takes on this other persona. Van Johnson takes on this other persona.
Shifts into a gear. Yeah.
Yeah, shifts into a gear and stays in that gear. It won't come out of that gear. And, you know, and then you start to see the consistency of Keisha's positions. So what initially came across like, you know, throwing Molotov cocktails in the room, you see it has a more consistent basis that is more grounded in policy. And so, and I think in a way, that's what the character assassination is intended to do, is to keep consistency from forming. So when Jolene came in, she made some rookie errors, which she was bound to do. It was the first time she'd ever held elective office. You know, we're in an area where it's routine for people to serve 3, 4, 5, 6 terms in office or whatever. So here she was coming in to the most entrenched bureaucracy that we have in Chatham County, which is the school system. And I don't think it's even close. What's the most entrenched bureaucracy? I think that's it. So she came in, made a few rookie errors that were completely understandable and not really a big deal. But those were used as excuses to kind of knock her off her game and just keep her on the defensive the entire time. So I guess that's the analogy that I would tend to draw between Keisha and Jolene. I don't want to go too far in drawing analogies because there are many different dynamics going on between those situations. But I mean, I guess that would kind of be my response.
Yeah, it's been a tried and true tactic of the establishment here to pick out someone and hang all your problems and complaints on their style, their word choice, something non-substantive. I mean, let's ask Keisha about policy. She could hold her own and be very convincing, but they do it on a superficial, nasty level, and it's a tried and true thing. Let's do this, Jim. Tell us about the Savannahian. How's it going? What's it like?
Yeah, the Savannahian is going gangbusters. It's an all digital alt weekly. So we made a decision very early on. We made several key decisions early on, and I stress that this is a collaborative effort. So I think some people have said, "Hey Jim, this is your new paper." Well, it's not my new publication. It's me and Rachel Flora and Sean Kelly, and we're all on the same level. We're all equal crime bosses, and we made some key decisions early on, one of which was to be all digital, because I don't want anything to do with paying print bills anymore, because it's murder paying for the dead trees. Why do it? You don't need it. So all digital all the time. And the other thing is we did not want any advertising. So that for a lot of reasons. I mean, we were just tired of dealing with advertisers, and also we wanted to be able to curate content that really was not a tail wagging the dog situation. Like, we need a food section because we want food advertisers. You know how it is, John. I mean, that's how it is with the old school publication. We didn't want to do that. So we wanted to just curate our content the way we wanted to do it. And that means no advertisers. So what does that mean? How do you make money? Well, through subscribers. So we decided to make it all paid subscribers. So it's $5 a month, $60 a year, and it's an easy transaction. And it's the time is right for this stuff, because I think people are prepped now at the idea of subscription services for a lot of different content. I think that's in many ways, the mode of the future. Because we'd love to give it away, but we got to make a little bit of money. Sure. And it's just a little bit of money, to be clear, that we're making off of the Savannahian. I think it's very significant that early on we decided to do a GoFundMe. And Chuck, I mean, we were messaging that day when the GoFundMe went live, and we were both like, "Holy crap, what's going on here?" I guess we set a goal of $2,000 or something, $2 or $3,000, and we got over 10 grand. So, and that was just people.
Awesome.
The effusive response. It wasn't like we just had 3 or 4 angel investors come in. It was all grassroots. It was all $5, $10, $20.
That was all the goodwill that you had cultivated over 20 plus years of pounding out great, honest, crisp, clear-eyed journalism. So you deserve every of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're going to post a link, obviously, to the Savannahian, and we encourage all our followers and friends to support Jim and his product, because I've got a subscription. It's brilliant. It's insightful. It's the way of the future. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I got a follower question that came into us about your product, the Savannahian. Okay. And this person said, they're a subscriber, looking at the headlines, approximately 40 of the stories you've published, 8 would be categorized as hard news, 11 appear to be softer news, 7 are purely features, and 13 are entertainment, cultural event related.
That's quite a breakdown. That's quite an analytical breakdown.
That sounds like a Robin Sherman question.
Well,
doesn't it? Yeah. It is.
So basically the question is,
nailed it.
Yeah. Is that the recipe for now, Jim? Is that that vibrant mix of a little hard news, a little arts and entertainment? What's the editorial menu doing? All jokes aside, that's a fantastic question.
First off, it is a work in progress. So, and it kind of, we're only 3 months into it, 13 issues. So I think the final mix has yet to be seen, and it'll be organic. Whatever it is, it'll probably be more organic than like planned out. I very much think that a very important role for us, and for me is kind of my thing, I guess, moving forward, is this idea of culture and civic identity, and protecting it, preserving it, encouraging it, enhancing it, which is one reason why the name the Savannahian really worked well for us in kind of what we want to do, because we feel like our, local culture and civic identity is beset from so many different sides right now and so many different influences. And it's more important than ever to sort of hold firm and really protect and encourage it. So what's my point? My point is that includes the arts and that includes entertainment. And if you notice, the artistic and creative figures who we're talking with are primarily not like touring bands coming through. It's local people. It's like Jen He, Susie Rand, and Ty Thompson, and people like that who have a standing in the community. And but they're part of it. So they're part of the news mix. We have done some sort of what you call hard news. Rachel did a fantastic special report on affordable housing pretty early on. But I think a really good model for this, for what I'm talking about, if you're looking for an example of it, is Jim Reed, who was a longtime contributor at Connect, a freelance contributor.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant. Did
a couple of pieces for us. That's all he's done so far. I'm sure he'll do some more in the future. But he did like the definitive retrospective on the Bayou Cafe, which
so a great piece.
If people don't know what the Bayou Cafe is, it is like it's almost like Pinky's. It's like part and parcel.
21st birthday memories. 21st birthday memories. 100%.
There you go. Yeah, all kinds of memories going back, and its demise is absolutely news oriented. So to say, oh, he's just writing about some old bar. Well, he's not just writing about some old bar. He's writing about an old bar that had its rent tripled by the landlord, which is a very newsy. That's a news story,
during a pandemic. Yeah.
During the pandemic. So it's culture.
And also in line with the jinx. It's not. It was successive places. I have remarked like, we got to keep West going at Rocco, or else we're going to have nothing left downtown.
Right.
That's like the last kind of venue left. So, I agree with you 100%. That was a huge news story. Let me ask a follow-up. Do you think that we'll get more of the classic Jim Morekis skeptical editorials? Because I have remarked in preparation for this episode, you're one of 3 or 4 voices, editorial voices over the last decade or two in town. I would put, you, Trainer, Van Brimmer now, Lou Phelps to a certain extent, right?
Tom Barton.
Yeah. I don't know if we lost Jim there for a second. He froze on my screen. Do you see him? There, he's back now. Did you hear me for a second there, Jim?
Yeah.
I was saying, I consider you. No, I was just saying, I consider.
Yeah, I actually lost.
Yeah, I was just telling the audience, I consider you one of a few editorialists here in town over the last decade and a half. And I put, Trainer, Van Brimmer, Lou Phelps in that category of just people whose opinions have mattered, and I think that question makes me think of, will we see some of those classic Jim Morekis skeptical editorials that really kind of reveal along the same lines of what we're trying to do at Better Savannah, in that we're just trying to show what is the reality. Here's what other cities in our situation are doing. We could do what they're doing, but that might hurt a few people who have been what I call the winners who've taken all. The people who have won Chatham County and Savannah for the last 2 decades, the tourism industry, the port and logistics industry, the home building industry. These are the winners, SCAD. These are the winners of our age. And a lot of the policies that we need may not be the best for their personal interests or bottom line. You've written about this in a way that has been palatable to a large audience in Savannah. And I'm just wondering if we'll get to see more of that in the Savannahian.
Sounds like you want to see more of it.
I do.
That's a verdict. Okay.
I will say, as my $1 $5 a month subscriber, viewpoint, I I don't know how many there are, but one of a few thousand, I imagine. That's just my opinion. I do want to see more of that because, you know, as you've known, those other voices that I mentioned, they often are either far to the right, far off to an agenda that is not really an alternative kind of agenda, or they're in the middle and they're trying to play both sides. They want a certain type of, yes, institutionalist is a great word for it. And you have kind of always been this voice in the wind, you know, so to speak, against that grain. You know, not, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, just, you know, the one actually for the longest.
That's accurate.
Correct. I mean, you've been, it's like, and when I see this, I'm going to connect this to the 2019 election soon. It's kind of like we've come to Camelot now at the end here. You know, Savannah's catching up to a lot of what you've been writing about for 2 decades. And it's not that we take credit for it. We're just simply a conduit for this type of energy here. We realize that we're not the only people who think like this, right? There are others who agree with the policies we're talking about and the goal that we're talking about here. And so we view us and you and ATR, all of these various independent groups that are not connected to the Tourism Leadership Council or Visit Savannah or the Democratic Party or Republican Party, right? They're not institutional forces. They are independent forces. And I think that this year after the pandemic is the year for those types of things to take root and take hold and be a real force in the system. What's your thought about just these independent voices, your own and others in the greater body politic for 2021 and beyond?
Well, all I can tell you, you know, sort of going back to your first thing about, you know, the columns and the editorials, I think from a strictly personal perspective, I needed to get off the hamster wheel for a little while, because if you are writing 1,000-word column every single week, which was my own decision to do. I mean, it's nobody's fault but mine to kind of get myself into that. You know, it's a lot, and I needed a little bit of time to decompress. And also, I think more importantly, I don't think we didn't want to send the message that all we are doing at the Savannahian is the same stuff we used to do at Connect.
Gotcha.
Certainly, there's definitely a through line. I mean, there's no question that there's a through line, but we're not just transplanting plug and play into another thing. We really wanted the new publication to kind of have its own personality. Now, that said, you're not the first person that I've heard that would kind of like, kind of like a return to the.
You don't say.
Yeah. So the old, flamethrower. But so yeah, you'll probably see more of that. But I one thing I didn't want to do was paint myself into a corner and have to, throw a Hail Mary every week,
Sure.
And just kind of curate it a little bit more.
So we got breaking news to everyone watching. I mean, this is a teaser for more hard-hitting editorials. This is your teaser to go to the Savannahian.com and subscribe. You're $5 a month. I'll give a challenge. If Jim gets 50 subscribers tonight, he's going to start working on a new editorial tonight. Right?
That's for sure.
Right. You do it. Exactly. Welcome to the world. Welcome to the new world of media. $5
a pop. Yeah,
let's
definitely.
go. I'm telling you, we got it. We get 50 tonight. We're going to get a hard-hitting editorial from Jim next week.
There you go.
I'm promising it for you. I'm putting you to work. I'm committing your 40
That's
hours.
Great,
here.
man.
I agree. Thank you.
I feel it coming because, we're at a phase now, and look, you guys may disagree, but this is sort of what I think. We're at a phase where this pandemic thing, for one reason or another, has to break. It has to break one way, good, bad. It just can't be what it's been over the last year. And I don't think it will be. If you look at the vaccination rate, they're, a lot quicker than anybody thought was going to happen right now. And I'm not getting into the vax argument. I'm just saying, factually speaking. So this whole idea that everything's got to stay shut down until there are no more cases of COVID-19 on planet Earth I don't even know where that came from. That was never the original design. So I think we're at a point where our local officials certain local officials in particular will have to break out of that mindset and sort of embrace
Find something new.
That Savannah's gonna be Savannah. Savannah's gonna Savannah, right?
We can't be in a state of emergency forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I'm someone, as you know, who very early on, supported Van Johnson's pandemic efforts early on. So I was not a skeptic of that.
Well, let's talk about that, John, because John, I remember McMasters. I remember a post, where we're just coming off the year anniversary of Mardi Gras. We're coming up on the year anniversary of all of this starting. And I remember a post, McMasters, where you basically said, "Boy, man, I swear, if Van Johnson doesn't cancel this St. Patrick's Day parade, he's going to have to resign." So I do think he responded after seeing the fallout from Mardi Gras, and I agree with you 99.9%. I think he's handled the pandemic about as good as anybody could have, given that hand being dealt to him in the first 90 days of a term. But I think the broader point you're making is we got to move out of it, right? Yeah. We can't be in this mindset for the next 3 years. Certainly small businesses can't be in this mindset for the next 3 years.
If Van Johnson is as creative and savvy a politician as I think he is, or is capable of being, then, hopefully he's pivoting towards how to manage what's coming, because, shaming small businesses and yelling about masks, that was fine. That needed to be done in the beginning, to manage the shutdown.
But go and take a picture. But go and take a picture at the hotel the city has a $50 million bond in, without criticizing the same mask mandate issue, right? Yeah. We want to be fair here. I agree with you. Needed to be said, but who's getting the standards here, and who decides what to apply, which standard to apply, and when?
Of course,
that's the question.
Of course, yeah. And it's like, okay. I mean, I think the time. I guess my point is he wasn't wrong, but it's time to move on. Move forward. And I'm not saying he won't do it. I'm just saying it's time. Yeah, I think it's time, and we're going to see with this. Look, don't get me started on this St. Patrick's Day thing. I understand the parade's already been canceled, and I'm not sure he had a choice, really, realistically. But this notion, I'm sorry, guys, you may disagree. This notion of shutting down all the bars for a week during St. Patrick's Day,
is that in discussion?
I'm sorry,
It's being talked about. It's being talked about, John.
They're doing it in New Orleans right now.
Right.
And my concern is, if you look at the past, Van, I think, has strategically looked at other officials for guidance. So he looked at Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta. He looked at Mayor Cantrell in New Orleans.
Yeah.
He looked at Andrew Cuomo, but that's a different story we could get into later. So my point is, I'm just hoping he's not saying, "Oh, well, Mayor Cantrell shut down all the bars for a week. I got to do it too, so that I can get on CNN and get a 30-second hit on CNN." I'm hoping that's not going to be the temptation, because I think that'll be a tragedy. And I'm not even being hyperbolic. It'll be a tragedy if he does that.
You just mentioned something. What's your take on this media mayor? I mean, have you seen, you have been in media for a long time. What is your take on this mayor's media presence, seemingly to be constant and unending?
Well, if you're good at something, and he's good at it, you're going to do it. So, I mean, he's good at it. He's very media savvy. And I'm not saying that in a cynical way. That's fine, whatever. But I think we saw early on that he was playing to a national audience a lot, which always makes your wheels sort of turn. I'm very interested in y'all's thoughts on this. Is he even going to run for a second term, or will he have already?
Well, if you are a longtime viewer of Better Savannah, if you go back to our episode last week, we had Murray Silver on.
Right.
And Murray, you can go and watch this clip. Murray said essentially, it doesn't make much sense to run for re-election, right?
Right.
He's already gotten his pension at the county. He's retired from the county. He's eligible for a pension from the city. Many people are speculating. I will remind people, when we were meeting about one of our top 10 shows the other night, John, I said, the number one thing to watch out for this year is redistricting. That's going to happen in August. I have been reminding people that Buddy Carter does not have as much seniority as others in the Republican delegation. And if you look at the last decade, the Republicans lost 2 seats in the North Atlanta suburbs. What's more important, going back after those or maintaining what they have now? That's not a question for me. That's a question for the Republican leadership in the state party, and in the legislature with Ralston and them. But I do think that, Al Scott has been putting his name out there relatively. I don't know if you saw me. He did a podcast with Adam Van Brimmer and essentially said, the only thing I haven't done in my career is run for Congress. You got to think that there's 5 or 6 people watching that for that map change. Van's going to be one of them. But I do think he's going to run for something higher at one point in his career or another. It would be a shame not to. He's an extremely talented politician.
Agreed.
Do I think he's the best mayor for the next decade for where Savannah's going? Probably not. But let me remind people something. Do you think that Buddy Carter could get elected mayor of Pooler today? This is a man who was mayor of Pooler 25 years ago. Okay. So it's just about where the demographics of destiny, things are changing. Would I rather have Van Johnson than Buddy Carter? Absolutely. Every day of the week, so I hope that he does. I am just wishful that he will compromise with the local agenda on his way up. But as you know, compromise is not really the way to get up there a little bit. So it's lots of different goals and aspirations. I'm interested to see where it goes, but people have been saying he's going to run for lieutenant governor. And statewide that's a trudge of a race.
It's a trudge. Is lieutenant governor, it's not even a springboard to governor anymore. And plus, didn't they strip all the powers or didn't Eric Johnson strip all the powers from the lieutenant governor?
It depends on who's the lieutenant governor and who's the Senate pro tem on any given session, right? I think it just depends. They would put it back if it was the other way around if they needed to. But I agree. I'm just relaying what I've heard from people inside in the ball game. Here I think an appointment to the Biden administration is not out of the realm of possibility. But I can also see him just running for re-election just purely because,
Chuck, never discount the big fish in a small pond mentality.
Correct. I said this the other night to you, John. I said, he's the man here. Why would you want to leave that earlier than you need to, right? I think is kind of the point I would make. One thing that happened early on in the pandemic, and we have been really pushing this as the source of the division on council. All right. So the pandemic hits a year ago, this time, right? By 2 weeks from now, a year ago, March 1st, March 2nd, we're really starting to understand this is going to change everything. In April of 2020, Van Johnson changes the rules package of the city council of Savannah. This is the first time, I believe, since Susan Weiner, that the rules of the city council have been changed. And the rules used to be that any member of council could put an agenda item underneath their name on the council agenda, as long as they got it into the clerk of council on time, and they would be debated. And if we voted on something, if they had 5 votes, we got something on council, right? If they don't have 5 votes, we don't have anything, right? Well, the rules package has been changed so that now, unless you have the tacit approval of the mayor and city manager, you must have 5 votes just to get something on the agenda. And so just to debate, not to pass, right? The Supreme Court, the writ of certiorari to get your case heard at the Supreme Court is 4, right? And that's the highest court in the land. And this is a local city council. What are your thoughts on that? This is a move that's seemingly the Mitch McConnellization of Savannah City Council. What I mean by that, for context, is mucking up the rules so that a minority caucus can't do anything, right, without the majority caucus's approval. Do you agree with my assertion that that might be the biggest point of division, source of division on this council right now?
It seems like the reason one might do that is if one is not confident of being able to have a governing majority, a consistent governing majority.
Wow.
I mean, I certainly don't have any conspiracy theory about any other reasons why someone would want to consolidate power that way. And Chuck, you and I have talked about this before. Some of the election returns were very, as you know, very interesting in terms of who got the most aggregate votes citywide. And I don't know if that comes into play. So what I'm saying is the tinkering with the agenda rules may be more of a defensive thing rather than an offensive thing. I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm saying that comes into my head as a possibility.
Either way, though, I mean, I agree with you. I do think it's a defensive measure, 100%. I mean, it's not just about what goes on the agenda, it's about what doesn't make it, right? And if you don't want your members, your quote unquote members, and I'm using this loosely, this is a nonpartisan council, there's no parties, I get all of that, but generally there's an understood reality in local politics here that there's a 5-4 majority on council. You got 5 in one camp, you got 4 in the other. And if you're looking to protect that 5, you don't want them to have to take tough votes, right? Because if the vote comes up and you vote no, you're going to have to go explain that to your constituents. But the vote never comes up. You never have to explain anything. Okay. I'm just trying to get people to realize that dynamic and what has changed in the last 10 months on council. That was never something. I mean, Eddie DeLoach, Edna Jackson, that you'd put it on the council agenda and she'd get her 5 votes or he'd get his 5 votes and beat it down, right? And that's democracy, right? You don't have the votes on council. You bring it up, you get a second, it gets debated, and the people with the most votes on the council vote it down, and your policy fails, right? But to deprive the citizens to see that happen, I think is among the shrewdest of political maneuvers this city may have ever seen, at least in recent history. And I'm just wondering how we can educate people about why that's a big deal and why we're not getting votes on big ideas that we want.
We're doing it, Chuck. We're talking about it right now.
Yeah. So here's my only insight into this, which is, you guys have done some amazing work on this and you know much more about the ins and outs than I do. But my take on this is that we seem to be in this situation where we're almost returning to the old school, a facsimile of the strong mayor form of government, because we are in this constant interim of no city manager, of no stable city manager situation. And what that means is a mayor can come in or thinks they can come in and sort of subsume that role. As we all know, even though the city manager is technically a non-political role, it's a political role. I mean, every effective city manager here has been a political player. And I think, somebody like Rob Hernandez didn't get that. And that's one reason he flamed out, because he didn't understand the political role of a city manager here. Michael Brown understands that. Say what you will about Michael Brown, he understands the political component of being a city manager. So this is a roundabout way of addressing what you're saying, but I wonder if that comes into play. The fact that we do not really have, we don't have a permanent city manager. Michael Brown is in for however long, back in for however long he's in. But we've been on this carousel, right, of city managers, and that's let a mayor come in and sort of almost be a de facto city manager in some ways. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. No, I think it. And if you incorporate the Gordon Matthews piece, again, first month of the city council's term.
Right. Yeah.
Gordon Matthews a private citizen sends a proposal to Chairman Ron Stevens of the delegation to the General Assembly of essentially a charter change to make the mayor a de facto strong mayor. These things being done without, of course, it was smoke and mirrors behind the scenes, no assent of council, no agreement of council, no resolution. It was not the way it was supposed to happen. And I view the rules package as an extension of that, just as, somebody somewhere, and you know what I mean by this, somebody in the game, said, these are your options. Change the charter. If that doesn't work, change the rules. And I just think it went down, and this was the most above board legal way they could do to set the game in a way that big ideas would not have their day in court, so to speak. And we would mostly have status quo, business as usual, with a few, low-hanging fruit, like banning pedestrians off of medians. Again, major accomplishment, guys. Again, not here to argue that it was a bad ordinance.
Safety. Chuck, it's all for safety. Don't you know?
Think about the children. Would you think about the children, please? My God.
Let's change direction.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, please do. We got like 15 minutes left. Let's go.
That rules change is a very deep rabbit hole, and people do need to know about it. It is a huge impediment. It's like trying to get pre-approval for a freedom of information request, Jim, from the people you're requesting the information. Right. Yeah. Okay. You're probably familiar with Inside the Actors Studio with Lipton.
Oh, yes. No, you're not going to do this.
Oh, yes. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Word association. Let's go.
Oh, my God.
As deadpan as Lipton was.
Yes.
Ready?
I hate this kind of stuff, dude.
Oh, I love that. I love that you hate it. I love that you hate it.
This ain't going to be good TV. I can tell you that.
Well, there's ain't television. It's Facebook. There's only 30 people watching.
Just spontaneous comments.
Oh, my God.
First thing that comes to your head.
Chester Ellis.
Vote blue no matter who.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love that. Thank you.
Okay. Jane Fishman.
Iconic.
Amazing answer. Good answer.
Good work. Dietrich Leggett.
Man of the people.
Right on.
I like Dietrich. Do y'all have a beef with Dietrich? I like him. I like him just fine.
I don't think Dietrich has much of an opinion to share,
Okay.
I mean, based on what he's doing in council so far, there's not a lot there.
Okay.
To judge.
Okay then.
Back at the ranch. Stone Stairs of Death.
Anonymous.
Anonymous. There you go. I like it. I like it. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Eddie DeLoach.
George W. Bush of Savannah.
Good. Jim, you may not like this, but you're good at it.
You're very good at it. Very good at it.
Just a few more.
Cool.
Truman Parkway Linear Path.
Find another place for the canine dogs.
Okay. Pinky Master.
May I explain? I'm a dog lover, and I don't like seeing a sign when I'm walking my dog saying no civilian dogs past this point. If you got a problem with civilian dogs, put up a fence so that your canine dogs don't try to kill my civilian dog that's on a leash. Sorry, rant over.
I get it.
And I promise there's no leaf blower on here. So
I'll talk about leaf blowers all night.
All day. We need an ordinance.
Yeah, you talk about an ordinance.
We talk about a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a big government restrictive, oppressive ordinance that I am 100% behind is banning leaf blowers. But they won't touch it. And so now they got to go after homeless people.
Exactly.
Not good. Not good.
Okay. Last four. Pinky Masters.
Many nights. many nights.
Okay.
Many.
Or alternate answer, jukebox.
Jukebox. There you go. Yeah. So it's definitely a Pinky's reference there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Robin Reeder.
I'm sad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first. I mean, she doesn't. Her passing makes me sad. She was amazing, but
amazing person.
Also, I will say ahead of her time.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, can you imagine if you had a community figure like Robin right now at this time?
We need it.
Yeah, big time. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Fire fee.
Blast from the past. Boy, that was our biggest problem, was that stupid fire fee. Remember that?
Before
we
COVID,
had a lot of fun with that.
Lighting our hair on fire about fire fees.
Partially responsible for the end of an entire council. I mean, I think that's a reaction.
The dumbest idea, the dumbest hill to die on.
Just the overreach. It's a sledgehammer. It was a sledgehammer for what they needed a scalpel for. It's just like you're taking a blunt approach.
But it did, and you guys know this, you probably talk about it all the time, but it did open up this whole discussion of who's on the tax rolls, who's paying property taxes. And I thought there a lot of great ancillary discussions.
Reverend Dr. Leonard Smalls, John, you just did a couple of appearances with him on Keisha's public access show, Alderman Gibson Carter's public show. Fire Hernandez, stop the fire fee. It became a rallying cry because of the overreach. It was a huge turning point in the Deloach administration.
It was, and it was the first time, or one of the first times where the sacred cow of discussing SCAD's nonprofit status vis-a-vis all of their properties became a common topic of discussion.
It was permissible,
and it was permissible. It was. You can talk about it now, and we do. So that's cool. So there you go.
What's the last one, John?
Right. No, that's it. That's it. Jimmy did really well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But what was your impression of the 2019 city council elections that took out 7 incumbents and gave us this revolutionary council that today we're not sure which way it's going? What was your take on that?
Okay, maybe you guys may think this is a contrarian take, but the power of incumbency is so strong in this country that for you to experience, and Chuck will probably disagree with me on this, but I think to experience a tsunami of change at that level, the first thing that has to happen is people got to screw up big time. They got to make a lot of bad mistakes, and a lot of them, and those guys did. And they wouldn't stop making
over and over and over.
Fire fee. We talked
bonds. $250 million in bond spending. $250 million.
Yeah, and that's not to take anything away from anybody who won. So just to be clear. But I mean, you got to screw up on a grand level to experience that kind of tsunami ordinarily, simply because incumbency is so powerful. It's so powerful. I mean, I remember before the election, we were speaking of Dietrich. I guess somebody, maybe Chuck, you and I were talking about the money that Bill Durrance had. He had like
$90,000.
He had, by local standards, that was a printing press to make money, right? And he didn't win, and it's like, so I don't know. They screwed up, dude. They screwed the pooch. I don't know. And they wouldn't stop. They drank their own Kool-Aid, didn't they? They
were, Chuck and I talk about this all the time. Edna was just as pro downtown and Chamber of Commerce as Eddie was, but she didn't play it. She kept it on the down low. Eddie and Brian and Bill and those guys, they were just straight up, this is what we're doing, like it or lump it, but this is the course of action. And they got hammered for it.
Yeah.
So, well,
cool.
We're coming up on our hour.
I want to ask in our last segment here, Jim, where do you think the future of local politics is headed? There's a lot of camps. There's the Van, kind of political rascals, Coco, Molly, Clinton, Edminster, kind of that wing. There's the West Side, Keisha, Julius Hall, Estella Shabazz, Brunetto Lanier, who's going to be on our show in a few weeks, by the way. Where's the shifting sands going to, when the music stops on the next round, where do you see people or certain forces and policies that we're trying to get done? Do you think we're making positive steps forward, or you think we're going to end up taking some steps back?
Yeah. I think a very underrated Savannah figure and politician was Floyd Adams Jr., who I don't know how you guys stand on Floyd, but I'm always sort of singing his praises. He was very prescient in many ways. And many years ago, he predicted that the suburbs, and he was talking about South Side, would change dramatically as people became gentrified out of downtown. And that actually presaged a national trend, which is going on all over the country now, where the suburbs are changing very drastically, not just demographically, but also economically because of gentrification and other concerns. That is only going to continue. And that's going to be a big political driving force. It already is, as we've seen with some South Side races. And expanding out from our little Savannah bubble, we kind of started talking about Pooler. I remember I brought up Pooler with regards to the new Connect, strategy. But I will say this about Pooler. A lot of people, diss Pooler, but it's hard to find a more truly diverse area in Chatham County than Pooler right now, ethnically, racially, and otherwise. And I think that's an under the radar story. The changes that have gone on in that area have been pretty profound. And that's as their population increases vis-a-vis the rest of the county, that will become more of a driver. And I think it may surprise you somewhat, or not you in particular, but it may surprise people somewhat to see what happens when those changes happen in Pooler, which not that long ago was lily white Republican, conservative, it's changed a lot. And as more and more people live there, it'll continue to influence county politics more and more. That's my big, wild prediction. It's probably just common sense, but
Well, I just like to point out to people that 5 years ago, we had a Republican district attorney, we had a Republican mayor, we've had sweeping changes in many ways. But the message I want to leave for people in Generation X on the young end and millennial generation and the high end of Gen Z who are looking to this arena. Generally, over the last decade I've been in Savannah, I've found two types of people who get into the political arena. There are those who are looking to inherit the system, and there are those that are looking to change the system. And on the by and by, those that are looking to change the system get pushed to the fringes as much as possible. But in many ways, the last 24 months, this is all relatively a recent phenomenon, 2-3 years. I've seen the fringes populated mostly by new carpetbaggers, right? By new people. We got a lot of people here who are not from here now, a lot more than even 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got this resurgence of deep-rooted Black Savannah, inspired in many ways by Stacey Abrams, but also in many ways by the backlash to Donald Trump over the last few years, that have activated a new voting electorate, the pool of voters has just dramatically changed in the last decade. And the responsiveness is not quite there yet because it's still a new electorate. And so I am interested in the people kind of beyond the mayor. Again, I think the mayor will go down as a relatively successful mayor, mostly due to his navigating the COVID crisis. I don't think we'll accomplish the big things that people like you and I have been discussing and you've been writing about for years, mostly due to the pandemic. But I am looking at the people beyond that: Keisha Gibson Carter, Dietrich Leggett, Nick Palumbo, Derek Malo. These are the next generation coming up behind the last one. And I'm interested to see who falls into what camp, who's trying to inherit the status quo and who's trying to change it. And so far, our council's been pretty easy to see who's in what camp so far. And I'm just fascinated to see how that plays out. Jim, you've given us, a little bit over an hour here. I mean, we could go on. I mean, again, if people want to pay us money to do this, we could do this, and actually go 2 more hours, I'm sure. If we didn't have other responsibilities in our life,
right.
I know that we would. I'd love to have you back on maybe towards the back half of this year to catch up and see how things are. Please keep us apprised of the Savannahian.
Cool.
We will put
Savannahian.
that.
I'm wearing my Savannahian.
Oh yes, shirt. The merch. Buy merch from the Savannahian's website. Buy merch. John, what do you got closing out here? What do you got, John?
Jim, why don't you tell everybody how to get a subscription to the Savannahian?
Yes.
Yeah, you just go to thesavannahian.com, and Savannahian is spelled Savannahian. So it's Savannahian, in case there's
the real way to spell it.
Yeah, in case there's any dispute about how to spell Savannahian, thesavannahian.com. And there's just a little thing you go to, click on it, and it'll take you right there. And it's easy.
Awesome.
Super easy. Yeah.
Also, our intrepid producer, Carrie Smith, informed me via text that several people watching tonight's show wanted to know if you're going to have a Facebook page for the Savannahian.
See, this is okay. I'm
tough
open.
question. The toughest question.
I'm open to this. We, not me. We at the Savannahian are open to this. We wanted to avoid the cesspool of comments. Spending all our time moderating toxic comments. We did not want to do. Now, the other thing is that we almost wanted to send a statement that this is kind of a post-Facebook sort of publication, more of an Instagram-friendly publication. We're actually pretty active on Instagram. So we kind of wanted to send a statement about that, about not being part of the Facebook universe. But we have had other people like, dude, why don't you guys have a freaking Facebook page? It's a no-brainer. So that jury's still out. What do you guys think?
Why don't you tell us your Instagram ID?
The Savannahian, yeah.
It's just at the Savannahian.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, it's like a question you have to answer for yourself, right? Like, I understand all of the negative points you just made. I understand all the positive points people would argue with you and say you're missing out on a huge audience, and you are. I mean, that there's truth to that. There had been the last year with the QAnon folks a very coordinated, effort to flood comments of local media. And I wonder if that, as the Trump era fades, which I see it fading a little here in the last 5 weeks, even. I mean, being banned from all social media has the effect it was intended to have. I mean, they have silenced, this guy, and the flames aren't being fanned quite as much. I wonder if it will be okay to return to how things were before, but the divisions sowed, in this country over the last 15 to really 4 years, really the last 5 years, I'm not sure how quickly they'll repair. So I don't know I don't have a good answer for you. I would love to see you on Facebook, obviously. I have mentioned to you that if you could monetize your own just postings, I would pay for that service, as an editorial. Like, again, like your thoughts are very valued because of your longtime history, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just because of you agree with us on half of our own agenda here, which I'm glad you do. It's just that you've got that institutional history here. People want to hear that stuff that you have to say about local stuff, but also just making some of your best content is just making fun of, national news or some national story, that people miss this or don't see that, so I do think that there's a lot of value there. But I would love to see you on Facebook, but I purposely click over on Instagram just to see the stories, when you share, although I actually get it in my email first. So, I think that's typically because I don't have to log in physically from the email touch. I usually go through that. Whereas on Instagram, I have to go and log in, and
I got it. Yeah.
On the email, it just because it's coming from the email link. I don't know if you're using Constant Contact or MailChimp or what have you. But whatever it is, it's set up the correct way so I don't have to sign in. So that's always
cool.
a pleasure.
Yeah.
For those of you who are watching that support this content, I invite you to go to bettersavannah.org and click the join membership button. You can join for $84 a year or $7 a month, whichever one is your pleasure. We'll be moving to premium content in a few weeks. One of the reasons we're moving our shows from Wednesdays to Thursdays is to accommodate a new technical producer that will help us kind of premium spruce up this content. I love doing this. Do I know how to do it better? How the video production works? I know none of that stuff. So I saw that you had a comment, Jim. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I did want to give a plug to ourselves here to go join our effort.
That's cool. Well. No, I just wanted to follow up on the Facebook thing. You know, we're only 13 issues into the Savannahian, so it is a work in progress. So I don't think there's anything necessarily etched in stone. We're to a large extent we're letting it move forward organically, and also taking feedback from people, because we obviously have a following, which is wonderful. But we do want to respect that. So I mean, I'm open to stuff.
I mean, again, like you said, podcasting is incredibly difficult to maintain the consistency.
Yeah.
But I do think that would be a great addition. I mean, I'm sure I would.
Okay.
I would subscribe to that in my Spotify feed or Patreon feed. You know, I mean, again, I think you could put a Savannahian podcast up on Patreon for another $5 a month, and certainly I'm going to pay, because I just value the content that much. As I mean, I've been reading this for 10 years since I moved here. This is the first thing I read when I moved here from Statesboro, because we used to have a Connect Borough, right? So I mean, there was this institutional, circulation and the name ID, and I think that it will take you some more time. Like you said, you're only 13 issues in. By the time you hit issue 50, I mean, you should be hitting a critical mass where your audience will tell you what is the next move for you. In a lot of ways, our audience's feedback has, generated us in a new direction. This started just purely to level the playing field for the 2019 city elections, because as you mentioned, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. We spent $2,000, it's a tiny amount of money, to make a difference. And it did. Clearly it did, especially when you look at close races like Keisha's. I am hopeful that we'll move this organization to a broader base of support of people here who don't want to participate through the traditional means. They don't want to write letters to the Savannah Morning News that are not going to get published or are going to get hacked down. They don't want to get involved with the Democratic or Republican parties, because who cares about the parties anymore? So I just am interested in your final thoughts on kind of where, these various projects are going and what you hope to be a part of the next year. And then let's take us out after that, John.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're just continuing to build the Savannahian and kind of get the word out. I think there is a multiplier effect, because we Rachel and Sean and I, as you said, we had this body of work previously, and we sort of took that credibility, and we just want to kind of honor that, and honor the commitment of all the people that came out of the woodwork to support us so fast and so much, which has just been overwhelming and really awesome.
John, your final thoughts for this wonderful episode of Better Savannah's podcast?
I just want to say thank you to Jim for agreeing to come on with us and let us be the first to hear about the explosion of what was Connect. I'm sure that was fascinating, but Jim, your history and institutional knowledge and your contributions cannot be overlooked or forgotten. I appreciate them. I appreciate you, what you do, and I hope you'll come back and talk to us again sometime.
Absolutely. We had a blast. This is great. It was great fun.
This is amazing. All right, let's take us out of the broadcast, John. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys and girls. We'll see you next Thursday for our top 10 show to look back on City Council's top 10 failures of 2020. And the week after that, we will have Bernetta Lanier to talk about West Savannah, the Salvation Army Project, a myriad of topics I hope that we'll be able to discuss with Alderwoman Bernetta Lanier from the 1st District. That will be on Thursday. I believe it's March 4th, although I might be off by a day. But with that, I'll let you guys have a great rest of your night. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.